Motsoaledi's laid out a plan that he says will help the congestion. And as Rofhiwa Madzena reports, he is confident that the chaos will not repeat itself.
The chaotic scenes at the Beitbridge Border Post last week that led to loss of life, many waiting in appalling conditions to cross into South Africa.
Trucks are standing in queues that are 20 kilometers long on either side of the border. The guys don't have access to water, they don't have access to food, and of course there are no toilets or ablutions. It's a pitiful state of affairs.
The Home Affairs Minister admits that the situation could have been avoided, but says there were other factors.
Trucking companies diverted their trucks away from Groblersberg to Beitbridge because they could not accept the waiting times imposed by the COVID protocols in Botswana.
The minister, however, accepts some responsibility.
We didn't have enough traffic officials to send there and to man the rest of the country because we need to save lives somewhere. So, of course, we take responsibility for not having massive number of traffic officials.
Motsoaledi says the department has a new plan, and this includes additional immigration officers, health officials and soldiers.
The Department of Home Affairs will deploy an additional 160 officials at the 6 busiest land ports of entry to process returning travelers until the 14th of January.
The minister says truck drivers will, however, be exempted from conducting tests at the borders, but warns that no one else will be allowed into the country if they do not produce their results. He says those who fail to do so will be tested, but at their own cost. Rofhiwa Madzena, Johannesburg.
The Road Freight Association's Gavin Kelly joins me now to discuss the Beitbridge border issue further. Gavin, you've just heard what's come out of the Home Affairs Minister in terms of the current situation. Things have improved according to the department, and they're saying they've got a solid plan to make sure that this never happens again, and that includes increasing the soldiers, increasing health officials who would be at the borders, as well as border police. What do you make of what's come out of the Department of Home Affairs?
Good evening, Rofhiwa. Yeah, I've just been speaking to the Minister on another station where we had a chat around what he had put in place or what he's planning to put in place. And the first thing that I'd like to say is this is a step in the right direction. It's what we were calling for, more resources, look at what impact there could be through various policy decisions or whatever processes one puts in place like screening. So make sure that we can get to everybody who needs to cross that border with more people, understand there are going to be queues and work on those queues. And then more importantly, we need to make sure that the queues that happened at Beitbridge last week and the week before don't repeat themselves. And if we know why they happened, hopefully we're not going to allow those causes to repeat themselves in 3 days' time.
Aren't you concerned about the implementation of this grand plan that the department has? We're all aware that South Africa is a great planner, but when it comes to implementing, we struggle.
Rofhiwa, I don't think it's only South Africa. I think everybody has grand plans. And there are a couple of countries around the world who are struggling with COVID like we are, and there were some massive delays between France and the UK across the border channel in that tunnel. So I don't think we're the only ones who have that little bit of a problem. But yes, hopefully the department has identified all the reasons why these queues happened last week and the week before and why they might be able to reoccur again. And lots of people have given them lots of advice, and let's see what happens. We have to be thankful that the minister has taken action. He has listened, and he has put more resources at the borders and is attempting, and that's the best he can do, is attempting to address the causes that created these queues.
A little while earlier, I spoke to the Department of Health about this very issue, and they said one of the best ways to deal with that situation that we saw at the Beitbridge Border Post was to hand over the responsibility to the road freight or the trucking industry to ensure that their drivers or their employees are tested, and so that we wouldn't have to worry about any backlog or congestion by the time they get to the border post. Would you agree with that?
Look, all trucks that arrive at the border post have to have two things in the trucks in this current COVID scenario. The first is what has been around for a long time, which is the pre-clearance from SARS Customs, so that you don't stand at the border and have all of these documents. We sorted that out a couple of years ago. So that process hopefully is running pretty well, and there shouldn't be glitches with that. The other part, which created a fair amount of the problem we saw in the last 2 weeks, is this COVID test. Now, most employers do a test for truck drivers because they are crossing the border, they're going international, even though we might not think Zimbabwe or Zambia is international, but it's definitely crossing a border, and they have already got that 72-hour requirement COVID test to make sure that they are not positive. So that is in the bag. There are a couple who might get to the border who don't have those tests, but in the main, everyone has already done that test.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time for that update, sharing insights on his thoughts of what came out of the Department of Home Affairs this afternoon, and that's Road Freight Association's Gavin Kelly.